It's hard to imagine this because we now know so much about microorganisms and their existence. But as a matter of fact, it was not until the late 1600s that microorganisms were first seen or discovered by observation through the first microscope, which was assembled in 1673 by a Dutchman called Antony van Leeuwenhoek. Even so, it was not until the mid-1800s that scientists first matched germs or microorganisms to diseases, what they call the germ theory of disease. The truth is, before all these scientific discoveries in the 16th and 17th century, no single human being knew microorganisms existed, how they looked, or what caused diseases. Yet when you open the Bible in the book of Leviticus, which was written more than 4,000 years before the discovery of the first microscope, it becomes clear that the laws written in the Bible involving the handling of sick people, dead animals, and sanitation are indicative of the knowledge of the existence of microorganisms, what causes diseases, and how to prevent their spread. If you read Leviticus chapter 15 verse 1 to 8, you'll find detailed instructions, laws that God gave to the Israelites on how to deal with a person who had a sickness. In such cases with a discharge, for example, diarrhea, vomiting, or mucus secretions. In order to avoid the transmission of the disease to others, God told Moses in Leviticus chapter 15 verse 2 to tell the children of Israel that when a person had an unusual bodily discharge, such a discharge was to be deemed unclean. We have to be amazed by this. Just imagine, before the invention of modern medicine, 4,000 years ago, Moses would have no way of knowing that discharges were unclean. Maybe gross, but not unclean. By unclean meaning that they had the potential to cause harm since they had infective pathogens that could transmit diseases. For the sake of the skeptics, let's say Moses invented this law and said discharges will be unclean in this verse. Maybe because he thought they looked gross, or maybe they were disgusting to touch, who knows what. But when you look at the next verse, Leviticus chapter 15 verse 3, Moses documents the fact that the discharge will make the person unclean whether it continues flowing from his body or it's blocked. It will make the person who touches it unclean. If touching the discharge was about it being or looking gross because of how it looked, then how did Moses know that even if there was no visible continuous discharge coming out of the person, that person was still unclean, meaning still able to transmit the disease, and as such had to spend 7 days in isolation and then reevaluated after the fact? If this law was the work of a man, what Moses would have written would have been simply, if once a person's discharge stops, that person will be considered clean. That is as far as his human ability at that time will have allowed him to conclude. It's for a fact that without the technological or medical advancements we have today, there is no way he will have been able to see the effects or the potential impact of a discharge. The cause behind them was invisible to him. So, the way the law is written above in Leviticus 15 clearly indicates the work of someone with more information or visibility than what was humanly possible or technologically available 4,000 years ago. This then leads us to believe that this law was inspired by God, who created all things, including microorganisms, and thus was able to see exactly how diseases were transmitted. And in giving the law, God did this with the intention to prevent the spread of diseases. And so he added this law to the Torah because he loves us. We thank you, God, for placing your laws in the Torah so that we can know how to protect ourselves from diseases.